Hey, it's time for another pitter-patter themed breakdown. I'm going to use Sonata's POV here for E9S, and this was what we were doing week 1, I suppose. So strats aren't necessarily what Party Finder or most groups would do these days, so where they differ I will try and cover so to the best of my ability. As for market placement, this is much more what this would be the standard, I suppose, compared to what was hastily placed down in the video here. But yeah, so you start by tanking the boss in the middle. Nothing too exciting at the very start. You'll just do an AoE, which is ground raising particle beam. You'll see the cast bar here there in a second. Just addle and shield that as necessary. Now this Art of Darkness cast is one of the recurring mechanics the fight here. So what you're looking for is at her animation. If you see two orbs on the left and the right of the boss here, that indicates that you need to stack, so it'll target either the tanks and healers or the DPS. And so you just need to pair up one tank and healer with one DPS to split the damage. And so that's what you see here. Everyone is pairing up with a partner, and they soak the damage. And then now we see the other version of the Art of Darkness. So it's interchangeable which one she starts with, but she'll always do one and then the other. So when you see a single, I guess you could think of it as like a large orb in her body here, where she's like channeling the darkness, this is a Protean. Just need to spread out into clock spots. Again, you would assign this at the start. And then just soak the beam by yourself. All 8 people, simultaneously bang. Easy resolve. Devouring Dark is the tank buster. It's pretty standard tank buster. Vuln up on whoever has aggro, and then a singular beam on afterwards. So you can home gang it or otherwise immunity it like we see here. But you don't have an immunity available, you would just have to tank swap during the cast bar. So Obscure Woods is what Party Finder would call brambles. So there's a bunch of bramble strats, such as Happy Brambles, Rin Brambles, and Mithra Brambles, I believe are the big 3. I would recommend Rin Brambles, so that's what I'm going to look at here. So essentially, after the arena changes here, and you get this foresty, dark foresty aesthetic, she's going to cast Flood of Obscurity, which will knock you back. You can shortcast or arm's length it. And then after the knockback, you'll have a bramble placed under you. So I'm going to look at Pork's vid here of the Rin Bramble strat, because that's what I would recommend doing. So knockback occurs from Flood of Obscurity. Brambles get placed under you. Now, Rin strat dictates that you have the melee up close with the range dropping behind them. I guess if you look at the marker here, the 2 marker, you can think you drop one on this corner of the marker towards the boss, and then you drop one on this corner out towards the boss, away from the boss, sorry. Doesn't necessarily need to be that far, like you can sort of see up here, they're overlapping it a little bit. This is from the tank perspective, I will note, so they are unfortunately stacking on top of each other. But of course, the objective here is to minimize the space the brambles take up on the arena. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to do. But yeah, so you see the brambles placed down here. And standing in them will kill you, of course. And then what you're looking for next is these this purple tether. So the boss will have these purple tethers towards either the north and the south, or the east and the west. And so you have the tanks and the healers run one direction, and the DPS run the opposite direction based upon where this tether is. This group here have the tanks and the healers running to the east, and the DPS running to the west. If the tether was going through the east and west, then you would have, say, the tanks and healers run to the north and the DPS run to the south. And so the reason you're doing this is where those purple tethers were will firstly obviously explode with this giant AoE, and limiting the space available to stand, which you'll see in a bit. But also you want to bait vines. So these brambles will vine to everyone who is closest to each bramble. So each bramble will have a vine to every person in the party. And then the tanks and healers will also be vined to the DPS. And the way to break the vines is to run away from who or which bramble you're vined to, right? You have the tanks and healers go to this side, they get vined, and then they run to the opposite side to break the vine to the DPS that they're tethered to, as well as to the bramble that the vine is tethered to. And then the dark crystals, which were those purple tethers, will explode, limiting the safe space. So, and you can see this here. Essentially not too hard there, but we'll quickly see it again here with this terrible strat just for amusement's sake, right? So don't do this. Don't do what you're seeing now. Do Rin strat, which was just covered there. But anyway, you get knocked back, brambles get dropped, vines will, purple tethers go out, and you need to identify where the safe spots are. It would split based on your rolls, and then vines would go out and you would break them by just running through. This is much more messy. Don't do that. But after that, the boss will begin casting one of two things. So here we see wide angle phaser unlimited being cast. The other one is anti-air, and we will see that one shortly. But what is happening here is she has this sort of double tether, this double yellow tether going on, I guess, towards one of the cardinal facing. And that's where she's going to jump to. So everyone's heading over this way. Yeah. Jumps on the wall here. So wide angle and anti-air, I guess, are just a series of different things, just one after the other, just quickly repeated. So what's up first is you just sort of need to hug to the wall where she jumps, because she's just going to cleave right through the middle, as you can see there. So limited safe spot on each side. And then you have the party split up into two groups, I guess, because she is going to hit the tanks and the healers with like a laser, like a protean, I guess you could think of it. So you need to have two DPS soak it with each healer, and then the tanks just eat it by themselves, which you see after this. So after the big cleave in the middle, the tanks are running towards the middle so they don't cleave the party. Meanwhile, the party stay on their side, beat those individual lasers with party stacks, as well as the tank solo. And then after that, she does what is known as a chariot, I guess, or an iron chariot in Final Fantasy XIV, which is just a point-blank AoE around herself. So she does a big explosion and everyone just pulls off melee. Not too hard, just got to remember that exact order of events, the sequence of events there, right? Go to the wall that she's attached to, out on the sides to avoid the big cleave in the middle. Healers soak the beams with their two DPS, tanks go towards the middle, then out of melee to avoid the point blank AoE. Afterwards, you just pull her back middle as well. Just recenter her there. And then ground raising particle beam is AoE once again. And then the second Art of Darkness is, so it's the Art of Darkness, but it's kind of like quintuple cast, I guess, or if you want to think of it like that, where she's just only prepping two things here. Later on, she'll do the third Art of Darkness, where she preps three things, but she's just prepping Art of Darkness casts here. So when it's a singular orb like this, and there's not another one on the other side, she's just going to cleave that side. So this entire half of the arena is going to be danger zone. And so everyone's just going to move over to the other side, noting that that side's soon going to be cleaved. And then she's prepping this one, which she will do immediately after the cleave. So this one, of course, is the protean wave, where she's like channeling the darkness, or it's that large singular orb in her hitbox, however you want to think about it. That just means protean waves. So you just move off the side that's going to get cleaved, and then you just have everyone move to their protean spots immediately afterwards. Super easy, nothing crazy. And then this is anti-air, so this is the other possibility besides wide angle. So same sort of thing, they're very similar. I almost personally like to think of it as the reverse order. So where wide angle was the cleave through the middle first, this one starts with Iron Chariot. You go to the wall again, it'll start with Iron Chariot, so everyone's out of melee range. And then it's, like I said, very similar. So instead of Protean Waves, this time it's you still stack with as a 2 DPS with a healer, and the tanks still go off on their own. But instead of a Protean Wave, it's just like a singular circular explosion on those people. So the healers get 2 small explosions, and the tanks get 2 large ones. So you can see the tank, our Paladin, Simbin, standing over there so he doesn't hit anyone. So you, again, just soaks tanks off doing their own things. And immediately after that, the tanks dash in, and they come join us on the side because she's going to cleave through the middle. So very similar, same sort of movement, especially for the anyone who isn't a tank. But yeah, nothing too crazy. Just reversed order is the way I like to think about it. But however it works for you, right? You got to remember the specific order of what's happening, what you have to deal with. There are uptime strats for this for the tanks. I'm not too familiar with them. I believe it uses immunity so that they can just stay on the boss. But yeah. And then of course you just pull her back middle again, always recentering her in this fight. Carrying Dark is once again the tank buster, so hallowed ground here in this case. But again, if you don't have an immunity available, you would just tank swap during the cast. Followed by Empty Plane. So she's going to change the arena again. So there's these tiles on the arena now, and she will remove the corners, essentially the 3 corner like that. The rule here is you can only have 1 person on every tile at a time. Having more will immediately make the tile fall, and you will die. And if you stay on any one tile too long, it'll start to flash red and indicate that it will fall soon. But don't panic right away if it is flashing red. Don't be like, oh no, I gotta move, and then walk into someone else's tile. You have a surprising amount of time to let the person in front of you adjust and then reset the tile, I guess. And that's essentially how you do it. You just move off your tile and then back on your tile to reset it. And you will have 2 ranged and the healers on the outside tiles like this, so each of the cardinals. And then you will have the melee on an inner tile in front of them. And then you just sort of share that one tile to reset. There are much better guides for looking at how this is resolved. I will link this one by Junebob in the description. But I'll try and briefly cover what is happening without necessarily going too in-depth the specifics of it. It's not very hard conceptually. Also, I do want to quickly note, if you get raised during this phase, you can walk on other people's tiles, so long as you don't attack. The moment you attack and you lose your raise immunity, I guess is how you could think of it being tied to, you will get the debuff that makes the tiles fall. So, if you get raised, just quickly move back to your tile without attacking, and everything will be fine. There's no reason to panic. But yeah, so tiles will be deleted, and this is what the arena will look like now throughout this phase. Everyone here has this debuff here on the first one on the list, I guess, and you can see it there. This is just essentially, it's going to be a laser in the direction that everyone's facing. So at the end of that debuff timer, you just need to be looking out of the arena. Clouds will spawn on the cardinals, and you just need to kill those ASAP. And look out the arena. That's all there with the yep, so that's the debuff timing out. And then she's casting this full perimetered particle beam, which is just a lunar dynamo or a donut, essentially. So the melee have made room for the ranged on the cardinals to come in, and everyone's just coming into a hitbox here to survive the donut. After that, everyone resets back to their original tiles. And then she is doing the Art of Darkness here, and she's going to cleave one half of the arena. And essentially you just need to all fold into that half of the arena. So everyone's making room for the guys on that side to come over. Gotta be fast as possible, without stepping on anyone else's tile. Note that the people in the middle here are still leaning over onto that half of the arena, because it's directly through the middle. And Easy as that. As soon as it goes off, just quickly unfold so people have time to set their tiles. And then you'll do one of the, either a stack or a protean. So this Art of Darkness cast is a protean because she's channeling the darkness, right? You know, it's that big orb. Everyone's just going to their proteans and coming in for some heals. And then that's essentially that phase over. So everyone's just doing a quick reset here of their tile so that it doesn't accidentally fall. But that is the end of the phase here with the cast here. Yeah, and so summon cast here, she's just going to summon 2 clones of herself. So the clone down there, clone there, and then she will do the Art of Darkness cast and cleave one side, and then the clones are going to simultaneously repeat this exact same cleave. So she's cleaving the right, her right, the boss's right. So the ads are all going to cleave their right. So there was a ad clone down here. You immediately know that anywhere near that clone is unsafe because the boss is going to cleave that entire side herself. You really only need to look at the clone that isn't on the side getting cleaved. And you know this clone's going to cleave her right. So the safe spot's going to be over by 4, and that's the way I like to deal with it. It is possible that both clones are like over here, right? And that makes it a little bit more tricky. But yeah, it's just a sort of look and then quickly assess. There are some tricks, I believe, but I just legitimately just look and assess. That's resolved there. The Triple Art of Darkness cast, I believe, Devouring Dark, so Tank Buster. Once again, the warrior has home-ganged it here. Again, if you don't have your immunity available for whatever reason, you would just swap during the cast. Now, the third act of darkness. So, like the second act of darkness, she's just going to prep 3 different things. So a cleave first. That side's going to be unsafe. And she will prep a protean wave here, but it could be a stack. But it is a protean wave. And then she will prep a third cleave. Or a second cleave, I guess, but a final cleave. You'll cleave one side, you'll go to either your stack or your protean spot, and then the other side will be off that. It's just 3 bang, 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 right after the other, and you just gotta watch what's being prepped. Just do it right after the other. And then finally, then she's gonna do Obscure Woods again, so Brambles again. So you just deal with this the exact same way. It's honestly, the second one's a little bit easier, provided you don't die to silly stuff. As there won't be purple tethers for this one, but for this one, you just drop your Brambles again, and don't do it this way. Do it the way I showed you before, Rin Brambles, right? But you would just drop your Brambles again. You would go to you would have dedicated sides, so I guess tanks and healers north and DPS south. You'd get tethered, and you just run through, break the bramble that you're tethered to, as well as to the person of the opposite role that you're tethered to, by just running directly through the middle towards the other side. And then there will be meteor soak towers that appear, and you just have one person assigned to each one. 4 DPS would take the north towers, and the tanks and healers would take the south towers because you run through to that direction, right? Hopefully that makes a little sense. Unfortunately, the visual that you're going to see here isn't going to be 100% accurate. You do see the towers here. The brambles will overlap with them a little bit, but so long as there's that like safe crescent for you to stand in, it's perfectly fine. So you just break your vines and you go stand in your tower, right? That's messy. Don't do it that way, but it can be done. Rim brambles 100% can be done that way, and it works perfectly fine. So your strat doesn't really change too much for this. It's just, instead of worrying about the purple tethers and the dark crystals explosions, you're just worrying about the towers. And then she's just going to do wide angle for anti-air. This time it's anti-air, so anti-air, remember, pull off the boss because it'll be point blank AoE first. Then your soaks, and then leave through them. Pull it back to the middle, recenter her. AoE. And at this point, the fight's mostly over. I think most party finder groups, especially in BIS, will sort of build it somewhere around this point, maybe a little bit later, maybe a little bit earlier, right? Depending on the strength of the group. This here is probably the hardest sequence of events in the fight. I think it's certainly what trips people up the most, I guess. But the purple tethers will appear again here. So big AoEs, remember, safe spot will just be the two sides untethered. So you just need to go to those spots. And then she's doing the second of active darkness here. So she's prepping things, right? She's prepping a cleave first. The tethers have gone out. She's prepping a cleave on that side. So when you go to the safe sides, you need to make sure you're avoiding the cleave. But then she's also prepping big orb as a protean, but it could be a stack. And so after the cleave goes off, you got to quickly get to your protean spots. It's very fast pace. So big dark crystal explosion, cleave, protean spots. And as you can see, yeah, it's messy, it's fast paced. And essentially nothing new here after this point. So Devouring Dark is Tankbuster once again. And swap it as happened there. You need to, otherwise I'm an idiot. Empty plane. So she's just gonna do the tile phase again here, essentially, and I think that's pretty much the end of the fight. After the second tile phase goes into Enrage, to the best of my knowledge. But there is ages left. People don't typically see it the second tile phase, or even if they do, they'll kill it around there, you know, right? The DPS check in this fight is super forgiving. It's nothing new after this point at any event. You've learnt everything at this point. So I won't cover the second tile phase. It's the exact same thing. There's nothing different. But yeah, so that is my E9S breakdown. Hopefully it was helpful. Thank you for watching.